This might be one of the most beneficial but simple tips you're going to get about golf. Why should you flare your feet out as setup? What difference is it going to make? Well, if you are a slider and you're not rotating well enough, you need to know this. Make sure to check out this video. So I'm pretty happy with that one. As I mentioned, today's video, really simple. This isn't going to be hard. This isn't going to be rocket science, but it could be really beneficial to you. If you're someone who is sliding too much laterally, and I'm probably really focusing on the lower half here, the lower body, rather than rotating well enough, whether it's in the backswing or whether it's too much on the downswing, this simple tip could really help you. It's also going to help your balance. It's just going to help the flexibility, the fitness almost part of it, because so many people are putting too much pressure on some of their body joints because they're not doing this correctly. And it is just about flaring the feet out at address. I get too many golfers starting with their feet pretty square, pretty straight, and it really limits rotation here of my lower half, and that makes it very difficult, of course, for my upper half. Rotation, we know, is one of the power sources that we can create. So of the three forces, the rotational, the lateral and the vertical, is one of those, and it's going to make a difference to how much power you can put behind the golf ball. So that's why I'm filming this with the driver in hand, but this is still relevant even with irons. Now, let's just focus very quickly on the trail foot. I would normally say I'd turn my lead foot out more than my trail foot, but if you are someone who's struggling with the backswing movement, maybe losing some hip depth, so as you turn back, your hips are already going forwards towards the ball. And how you check that is record your swing, run it through an app. I'd recommend the V1 Golf app. I draw a line on your backside and just see if you can actually get your right hip, if you're a right-handed golfer, so your trail hip on or past that line. We don't want it going forwards towards the ball that I see with a lot of golfers because they don't rotate this well enough. If you don't, flare that foot out a little bit more and it allows that hip to start to turn. As a fault, we often get this sort of movement where the knee almost pushes past the outside edge of the trail foot, and the pressure, you can see the inside edge of my foot is starting to roll here. The pressure's too much to my outside edge. That's moving mass rather than pressure, so we tend to see a big body movement off the golf ball. That makes it hard to repeat, to do it consistently, because we've got to move all the way back. We're talking about shifting pressure under our feet rather than moving our mass of our whole body here. So flaring that foot out can help me start to rotate in the backswing. If you're very supple, very flexible, you may be able to get away with that trail foot being a little bit straighter and limit the amount this hip turns, because there is a power source here to be created from making a bigger shoulder turn against a more limited hip turn, but not as much as you think. It's not that old traditional corkscrew effect that you tend to hear about. That corkscrew effect is more effective in the downswing move than it is in the backswing. And what I mean by that is actually there's a big power source to be created by making a bigger backswing, getting your arms further up and further away from the ball. And generally, to allow that to happen, you've got to allow that hip to rotate. You've got to allow that trail foot to lose some flex. And to do that, the majority of golfers do need that foot flared out a little bit. Trying to limit this, if it means I can't make very much of a shoulder turn or get my arms very far away from the ball, is limiting speed and power. So the majority need that foot turned out, whereas I mentioned that corkscrew effect, where the majority of elite golfers use that corkscrew effect is in the transition, because they get the lower body unwinding, unraveling back to the target before their upper body. So they're actually creating a bigger stretch, that disassociation, but they're creating it in the transition. We're not so much trying to create it here by limiting what happens with the lower half. The follow through, potentially the most important part. So we want golfers to be able to turn. Their body should be pointing, for a right-handed golfer, parallel left of target, for a left-hander, parallel right of target. So most golfers do not rotate well enough. They tend to get their torso towards maybe, let's say, the target rather than parallel left, but I quite often see the lower half pointing too far out to the right of the golfer, right to the target, and often the golfer hits it that way. Sometimes they'll throw their hands at it and we'll see the overreaction, but we really want our body to rotate through. What we would like to see at the start of the downswing is the pressure moving towards my lead foot, but then as I start to rotate, this lead leg starting to post, starting to straighten. And I find the golfers who start with that foot too straight, actually, they tend to get, again, the knee sliding past the foot here, and by the time they hit the ball, they've still got flex in this knee. They haven't allowed this leg to straighten. I personally find when I flare this foot out, and that's 90 degrees, so I've probably flared it out by maybe 40, it's allowing my leg to rotate, but it's also allowing this leg to start to straighten. So I'm now starting to use another force. Vertical force is pushing off the ground. So who knew that flaring your feet out was this important? Generally, I'd go more with the lead foot than the trail foot, but it depends on mobility, flexibility issues. For a driver, I go the most amount with my lead foot, about 40 degrees. I might be a little bit less than that with an iron, maybe 30, but I've still flared them out. My trail foot's turned out there by about 15, 20. It's allowing my hip to rotate on the backswing, keep that hip depth, maintain my posture. This lead leg, it's important on the downswing to shift the pressure, rotate my body, and you can start to see my lead leg responds by extending, by straightening. You might find it easier getting ball position with your feet square and then flaring the toes out, possibly. But you can see the feet are flared out. If you've not done this before, it'll feel quite weird to you, but get it on camera. It won't look as weird as it feels, and stick with it. It will feel more comfortable over a period of time. So it's really just going to help me turn better in my golf swing. Okay, just a little left to target, but good distance for me, nearly up to that 290 mark. But just trying to feel like I rotate, trying to make it easier, trying to take it easier on my joints. I don't want excessive pressure through knees and hips, and I tend to find people with their feet too straight, I'd see a lot of rolling on ankles, a lot of pressure being exerted onto the knees. So just make it easier. Let's fit one last one to finish with. You can see lead foot is more flared out than trail foot, and this is the most I get with driver, but definitely flared out towards the target, this one away from the target. Allow my hips to start to rotate rather than slide. And that was the straightest of the bunch, so I'm going to finish on that one. Not quite as long as the last one, but very much down my target line. Happy with those 3 drives. As I said, real simple tip, but hopefully it helps you next time you get on the golf course. Think about flaring those feet out, especially if you are someone who's starting with them too square. Hopefully you can start to see the reason behind that. Drop me some comments below. Let me know how you get on with it. If you haven't already, do subscribe to my channel. If you hit the little bell icon, it just notifies you every time a new video goes live. Right now, YouTube is suggesting the next video of mine that's relevant for you, and it's just here. Click on it and check it out.